So when we work with people, it's not just for their communication purposes, it's also for their mental health. Like the therapy itself is important when we do add the counseling aspect, because you end up learning so much stuff. For example, like bullying experiences, how low their self-esteem can be, and their overall mental health wellness could be deteriorating due to speech disfluencies or communication disorders.
Welcome to Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. My name is Greg O'Grady, and I am a person who stutters and a co-host of the Some Stutter Law, Newfoundland Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, along with my co-host, Katelyn.
And I'm Katelyn Mayo. I am a speech language pathology student, and I'm Greg's co-host on this podcast.
Some Stutter Law mission is dismantling and rebuilding stuttering. Let's start listening. Some Stutter Law mandate is in the spirit of Newfoundland Labrador's humor, robust and frank interactive discussions. Some Stutter Law podcast aims to rebuild confidence and hope for today's and tomorrow's persons who happens to stutter by dismantling stuttering myths, stigmas, stereotypes, and barriers.
The objectives of Some Stutter Law podcast are supporting, raising awareness, and increasing understanding and acceptance of stuttering, providing people who stutter, their families, professionals, students, and the general public with current information, research, and resources about stuttering, and promoting advocacy and support for people who stutter.
In today's Some Stutter Law podcast, we welcome Amy Bateman. Amy is currently completing a communication disorders assistance program, CDA for short. And Amy, this is a real mouthful for a person who stutters. And so welcome, Amy. So would you like to share a little bit about yourself and also what a communication disorders assistant is?
Sure. So I'm Amy. I am recently completing, so at the end of this week, I'll actually be completing my program as a Communicative Disorders Assistant, or as Greg said, CDA for short. CDA is someone who works with a speech language pathologist, an audiologist, or an ABT, so any form of communication program, anybody who works in the communication field. So I actually have a job starting on the 30th of August in Nova Scotia at the Nova Scotia Hearing and Speech Clinic in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia as a CDA.
Very exciting job. Yay. That's super cool. So I'm wondering, a good question to get started, where did your interest in this field come from, I guess?
So when I was choosing first year courses at Ford Memorial, my sister was actually making my schedule, and she asked me what I wanted to do. So she suggested that I do a general year study first, because I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I just knew that I wanted to work with people with special needs. So she suggested linguistics, because she actually took a linguistics course as well. And I said, okay, sure. Like, I love language. I love everything to learn, like it's an interesting topic. So I was all about it. So I took my first linguistics course. It was Introduction to Linguistics in 1100 with Erica Davis. And my love for linguistics just grew out of proportion after that. So I love the psycholinguistic aspect of linguistics. So I get to enjoy the psychology and the linguistics part. So even as a kid, I knew that I wanted to work with other individuals that had special needs or communication disorders. So I feel like speech language pathology was the best option for me at that time.
Amazing. I want to add, because we're always interviewing Greg's friends, and I just want to add that Amy and I are friends from school, and we went through the linguistics program together, and so this is a really exciting interview for me. But I guess something that probably everybody's wondering, and the reason we asked you to come join the podcast today, what are some of the main differences between a CDA and an SLP? Because obviously they do a lot of similar work, but what are some of the main differences?
So a CDA is like an SLP, but we don't get the perks of assessment. So my focus is going to be with a speech language pathologist because that's where my love and interest is. So what I do as a CDA is I get to do the therapy aspects of the, like, for the objectives and stuff, but I don't get to make the objectives and I don't get to do the assessment. So I can do screenings. So, for example, I've done stuttering screenings. I've done PSL 5 screenings, Katelyn, which you'll be doing, and they're really fun. As well as, what else is there? Thinking about the main focuses now. So yeah, like I can't do assessments such as phonological disorders or declaring what kind of assessment. So if they have like apraxia or stuttering, or if they have expressive language delays or anything like that. So I can't do any assessments, but I do work on the objective. So I do the therapy sessions. I help when I worked with my SLP here in Port Basque during my placement. He would allow me to sit in, and we would sometimes figure out how to do things together. Like, so he would ask for my opinions. And think about what else. Oh, I get to develop like materials and stuff. So I could come up with my own activities, which is really fun, but they have to be based on the objectives from the SLP. So I'm the assistant to the SLP. Lots of fun.
You know, Amy, I've I've never heard of a CDA before until Katelyn mentioned you. You know, you and your studies. Now, in terms of the the profession. Now, like is CDA CDA a popular profession in Newfoundland or?
No. So actually, my goal was to do SLP, but the program is so hard to get into. So I needed something to help get me one step further. So it was like a stepping stone. So I was actually previously volunteering with the SLP that I worked with here in Port Basque a few years ago. And he mentioned that a girl from here did the CDA program. So when I didn't get into speech the first time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I remembered that Tony mentioned the CDA program, which is a big focus in Ontario. So that's where I'm going to school to, in Kingston, Ontario, through online, which is typically an in-class program, but due to COVID, we're online. So it's really big focus in Ontario and at West, like Alberta and BC and stuff, but not here in the Atlantic provinces. Lucky enough, I did get a position in Nova Scotia, I guess because it is big enough. But here in Newfoundland, there's only one CDA, and that's in St. John's. I believe they work with the AVT there at the Janeway. And Corner Brook was looking for a CDA a few years back, but they couldn't find anybody because it wasn't popular enough. So they end up giving their funding to an audiologist rather than looking for a CDA because there's nobody to apply. So
CDA is kind of like a growing program, I guess, or a growing field of work. And so I'm wondering if you want to talk a bit about the importance of a CDA in the realm of speech and language therapy, and kind of what benefits that would add for a client.
Absolutely. So I here in Port Basque, I mean, we don't have any CDAs. Like I said, in Newfoundland, there's only one in St. John's. And so after experiencing like working with the local SLP here, so he actually works with preschool and 18 and older. And then I was lucky enough to do some observation sessions with the local school SLP. And Amanda works with all school age children from, I believe, kindergarten to grade 12. So realizing how much an SLP actually has to do, it's crazy. Like they have so much bookwork to do and reports to write and chart notes to do and planning and assessments, and is a lot of work. So a CDA is really important. Like I wish there was more here in Newfoundland because SLPs could use them. So for example, Tony's with Tony, he has, like say, kids, but once they're about 5, they get put into the school board system. So then Amanda, her caseload just grows, but Tony's gets smaller as the wait list, unless he has people on the wait list. So Amanda's caseload just grows and grows and grows because Tony's ends up on her plate. So really a CDA is extremely important for school boards here in Newfoundland, alone in Port Basque, because she services so many schools. So the main school in Port Basque and Granny's Collegiate, which is in Burn Island, which also kids from Rose Blanche go there as well. Legalis Memorial, which is in Isle of Mort. There's Belanger Memorial, which is in the valley, Cowdroy Valley. I believe she also does the school in Ramya and Burgeo. So that's a huge area with one SLP who gets 25 minutes a session. So if she had the opportunity to have the assistant, so a CDA, then her caseload could shorten, could be half, or she could just do the main book work and the CDA could help with the therapy sessions. So it is a lot to take on for one SLP. Like I didn't realize how big and how much they had to do. It's not just playing with kids or teaching people how to talk. Like there's so much to do. Even as a CDA, it's busy. So I could only imagine what a full-time SLP would be like.
So, Amy, if like as a person who stutters now, if I was looking for a speech language pathologist for treatment, would you walk me through the process of me, like being, being introduced to an SLP, and then, me being referred to you? What would the process be like?
Okay, so you could actually refer yourself to an SLP. It doesn't have to be medical. You don't have to go to a doctor and be like, yeah, I want to see an SLP. You can refer yourself if you feel like that is necessary. So the SLP will chat with you at first. He'll do his assessments and determine so your diagnosis, for example. So if you were to go for stuttering, the SLP would, well, I mean, he has to, his assessment to have his reports. And then he would chat with me about your assessment. And he would tell me the objective. So he plans what steps he wants to take for therapy wise. So, for example, I had a kiddo here in Port Basque on my own caseload that stuttered. And I got to take on my role as his CDA. So I got to work with him, and the SLP just sat out and observed. So Tony will walk me through the steps So I read his report, I read his assessment, and then he told me the objectives that we had to look at. So I based my therapy on his objectives. So with this child in particular, we didn't focus on the stuttering aspect at all. We just spoke about slow and easy speech. So we would make sure that we talk slow and easy, like Snooky the snail. He was our cue, he was our visual reminder the whole time. And so we didn't focus on the child's disfluency. We just reminded him to speak slow and easy. And we involved all of his family into the slow and easy speech. So it's a little bit different, I guess, because he was a child. And I guess it depends on the type of disfluency and the severity of the disfluency. But it's just, we work together. So like the SLP does the main stuff, and then we work together to determine what treatment plans we're going to go ahead. So I would just be there right as the SLP is done, and then he'll chat with me and we'll talk about it together, and then we determine what's going to happen.
So you would work closely with the SLP, and would would a CDA meet on after each session, or like once a week, or or is this decided between you and the SLP?
Because I was a student, and I guess it depends on the SLP themselves. So Tony and I would meet before every session and after every session. So we would talk about what my plans were for the session. So we would talk about the materials that I've chosen, the prompts that I've chosen, the super steps and sub steps, and we would chat about it. And then I would do my session, and then we'd come back for debriefing. So he would tell me what to focus on and what I did really well with. So we would just take one or two things at a time, and that's what I would focus on for the next session. So we always chatted about the clients. So I always had that reassurance and reinforcement for my own purposes. So I don't know now when I move to Nova Scotia if that'll be the same thing, because I have another CDA I'm going to be working with, and I didn't have that here. So it could be different there. But here, I guess because I was a student, me and Tony did it before and after every session.
I kind of want to flip back a little bit and talk about the program itself, the CDA program itself, and how that program differs from SLP, and kind of your experiences with the program, your background going in, the kinds of people that typically are part of a CDA program.
Sure. So there's a few individuals, and actually there's a few people who had linguistic backgrounds. One had actually a master's in linguistics. There's there's actually a girl that got accepted into SLP. So most people, I feel, use it as a stepping stone into SLP. So that was my plan. If I end up loving it as it is, then I guess I'll just stay as a CDA, but I do hope one day to be an SLP. So I completed a degree in linguistics at MUN. I have a degree in linguistics and a minor in psychology. And so I did that for a 4-year bachelor's program. And then I've also had experience with tutoring different individuals, so neurodiverse people. And I worked in, I volunteered with local SLPs for years. But I found the CDA program. So most of us are SLP wannabes for the most part, I think. There are some that have linguistic backgrounds, some have ABA backgrounds, so applied behavioral analysis. Some have psych backgrounds, some have there was some older individuals that were in my class, one lady has like an arts degree, and now she wants to do CDA. I think it all just depends on the person themselves. The experience overall was different. The program is a year long, so it's actually a graduate certificate that you get at the end. It's a very intense program. So my first semester I had 8 courses, and I've never done that in my life. So it's pretty intense, very high, like very fast paced. So I feel like if you are someone who struggles, like it's a difficulty with school and stuff and keeping up with homework, or a procrastinator, this is, you really got to work hard to stay in the program. But it's really fun. It's really quick. Like I said, like things get thrown at you all the time, especially online. It's a little bit more difficult. But overall, the experience was different. I'm the first Newfoundlander for that school. The coordinator that we had was there for about 8 or 9 years, however long 2013's been. And then so she was there, and I was the first Newfoundlander she ever had in the program, which was pretty cool. I also got to meet one of my closest friends, Jaclyn. So she kept me sane through the whole program. We would do homework together and help each other out with quizzes and stuff that we didn't understand. So I got to work in a field that I love, because although it's not SLP, I do get to do, I still get the perks. Like I still get to work with kids and other individuals with communication disorders, and it's just, it's a good program. I gotta say, like I did really enjoy it. Like it was good. So
Amy, what were the numbers of students in your class? I mean, is it a popular program for people who are interested?
there's 25, well there was 25 students. Recently a couple left the program, and there was one who passed away. So I guess now it's 23, 22. It's a competitive program. So when I first applied, I got waitlisted, and then I got accepted into the program. In Ontario, it is fairly popular. So there are 2 other schools, I believe, that also have a CDA program, Georgian College and Durham, or something like that. It's like in different parts of Ontario. So it is competitive, because it is like you do need having like a linguistic background is really important, I think, where it is so high paced and things get thrown at you. Um, but overall, I feel like it's pretty competitive. Like it's pretty popular for the most part, because there are so many CDA jobs that are available for people in like Ontario and out west and stuff.
So I noticed that the CDA belongs to the communication disorders, the Communication Disorders Assistant Association of Canada. Now, does your does your association work closely with other associations such as the Newfoundland Labrador, speech language pathologists and audiologists like the LASAPA? Do you work close to hand, and does other associations like the LASAPA recognize the CDAs?
They don't work closely. Like if CDAs from different programs, I know, because I was I was a class rep for the CDAC for our school, and individuals from different places. So I know like people from New Brunswick have emailed and asked about ask questions about their profession. So if they're having difficulties with an SLP or they want to start their own practice, which they can do. Um, so they work with them that way, but I don't know if they do work closely with Newfoundland Labrador. I feel like if it was something that, like a issue that arise, they would definitely like chat with us and make sure that everything worked out for the CDA. But I don't think it's something that they do regularly. Like I'm not sure.
Now, like, how is your, your association pro- promoting, the CDAs in Newfoundland? Because I'm just, thinking the more that I listen to you, Amy, it is a very, very, very important position, and I sense that no, new, Newfoundland and Labrador could easily use more CDAs within the province. So I'm just wondering, what is your association doing to lobby the government for funding for,
Uh,
for more recognition?
For Newfoundland, I don't think there's anything. Unless like I have thought about writing a letter to actually just get more positions here in Newfoundland because it's needed. It is truly needed, and you don't realize it until you actually become a part of the program. But I feel like as an individual who's in the CDA program and working in Newfoundland, you would have to reach out to the CDAC and ask them for their guidance and ask them for their help in chatting with like our association here in Newfoundland. I feel like because it's not so popular here, it's not on their priority list. You know what I mean?
You see, and listen, listening to you now, Amy, we realize that there's a definite shortage of SLPs in our province,
Mhm.
and I feel that the CDAs could easily augment the the services of an SLP within the school system. And so it's a shame that, I mean, not 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 being familiar with the whole area of CDAs, but listening that there's only one in the province surprises me, when when really there's there's a definite shortage of SLPs. We we have trained CDAs that could help out, be hired on, and so there there's lots, lots of work to be done, and to 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 have more CDAs within the province.
Oh, for sure. I would love to stay in Newfoundland. I mean, especially in St. John's. That's my favorite place in the whole world. I'm from Port West, but the East Coast owns my heart for sure. But it's sad to see that even individuals from Newfoundland have to go out of province just to find employment. So, I mean, there, like you said, there's a shortage here in Newfoundland, and they could easily use CDAs. Like I said, you really don't realize it until you're in that situation. And even here alone on the West Coast, I mean, we can use CDAs, even in the Corner Brook area, like in our bigger hubs. They are important to have, and you could almost have a CDA in every area in Newfoundland, really, because if we're in Corner Brook, we could service those from Port Ross or Stephenville or anything like that. So we could take on some of the responsibility and the stress from the SLPs. And if you're in the CDA profession, I mean, that's something that you love anyway. So it's not, the more the merrier for me. I love being busy and I love working with individuals. It's such a great joy. And it's so rewarding. So I really truly believe that Newfoundland needs more CDAs.
So I hope that when you start your new job, that you'll still continue to lobby for more CDAs in our province.
My mom really wants me to write a letter, and I've been going to, but I've been so busy. I am so busy, and because I'm still doing school, like full course load right now, so it's been, and I work full time, so it's been really busy. But I do have a plan to write a letter and give the recognition that CDAs are needed here in Newfoundland, right? Because we they're really important. I got not just because I am one, but they're important for the communication field for sure.
Is there anything that some study law can do to help promote and advocate for your association?
Here in Port Bass, we have our MHA, Andrew Parsons, and he was our Minister of Justice, I believe. So Andrew is a great MHA, and he helps with so much stuff. If you have a question or concern, he's on it instantly. So I think if I did send Andrew a letter, like even just to get the ball rolling, I think that would be a good choice. Because he does help, like he's wonderful in getting things done here on the Southwest Coast. So I think that would probably be my best bet, is to talk to him.
I just want to kind of change the topic altogether because I had a couple more questions that I was super interested in asking about. Doesn't totally flow with the conversation we're having, but it's all right. So I was kind of wondering, because a topic that we discuss a lot on the podcast is the emotional component of stuttering and the emotional component of communication disorders in general, and using counseling techniques and working with psychologists and therapists and things like that as an SLP or a CDA. And so I was wondering to what extent you learned about counseling and emotional aspects of communication disorders in your program, because I mean it's a quick program. I don't know if you had time for that kind of stuff, but I feel maybe it's important since you're working so closely with the clients.
So we don't necessarily learn a lot about counseling, like mental health wise. We learn about reinforcement, like positive and negative, like token rewards and stuff like that. So typical therapy stuff like counseling, but not like mental health. So due to CDA being a short length program, like you just said, like we don't really have the opportunity. But we do. It became more of a practice when I started my placement. So it became really important, and I caught on pretty quickly when I had older individuals specifically who like to chat about their communication disorders. I had a stroke patient, and we often just counseled sometimes because it's a difficult situation. I can't say I understand what they're going through, but I can help chat with them and point them in the right direction. So I did learn some important aspects while working with the SLP on how important the like mental health counseling is in that field, right? Like specifically, kids are a little bit different than adults. So adults are more likely to need counseling. Well, not need it, but they do require a little bit more, because I mean, most of the adults that I see have dysfluency, or they've had strokes or other forms of communication disorders. And it's something that they have previously, a skill that they had all their lives, and now they have difficulty using it. And they want to go back to being who they were, but it's really difficult. So it's hard for them to work through the therapy and understand that it's okay that you're not 100%. So I feel like it's a really important aspect, especially with adults.
You know, what would be some of the challenge challenge challenges that a CDA would experience working with clients?
So there's a fine line in my competencies compared to an SLP. So aside from just the assessing part, there are areas that I like is a gray area. So it's difficult to understand if this is my area or not. So if a client is challenging or they are having difficulty, I can't just tell them that I can fix it, or I can't change their objectives, or change their therapy plans. That's something I have talked to the SLP about. So the SLP is pretty much my soundboard. So I go back to them all the time. If I think that it's out of my area of expertise, then they help me and we work together in that situation. So there's been times when I've had individuals ask me about getting in contact with different disciplinary, so like social work or family doctors or whatever. And I mean, that's out of my area altogether. I do therapy sessions. So the SLP, I explain this is not my area. I can't answer this question for you, but I can ask the SLP and you could chat with them later. So it's it can be frustrating and difficult sometimes because you're not sure where the line is drawn, but it's always important to bounce off the SLP. That is your best option.
Mentioned that if 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 I heard you right, do you think, Amy, there's a need for private practice CDAs? Like in terms of would it be easy to set up a private practice? Like someone like yourself coming back to Newfoundland, setting up a private practice. Would that be a challenge?
I feel like it would be a challenge here in Newfoundland because there are so many aspects that you have to think about. So I would have to find another individual in a private practice. Actually, that's something me and Tony have spoken about before. Is if a CDA could work for a private practice here in Newfoundland, like SLPs or audiologists or whatever, because you don't hear it. Mostly is just with the healthcare system. Um, but I feel like there's a lot of work to go into it. I don't think it's something that because a CDA is similar but so different from an SLP. So I would have to work with the SLP or audiologist, and I guess I would have to go through private practice, and then I'd have to get my own, I guess, type of license to make my own practice here in Newfoundland, because you need that SLP to do your CDA work. So I'm not sure exactly how that would pan out. So
Now, would you explain what a I'm just looking, like like I've been doing some research online. What is the difference between an on-the-job trained OJT versus a CDA?
oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever heard of the OJT.
Yeah, it's an on the job trained o, OJTs, similar to the CDA, but it's a step lower. Yeah, you haven't heard of
Um,
that?
I've never heard of that. I just had to pull it up on Google. I don't know. I'm honestly not sure. I've never heard of that term. You threw me for a loop there.
Something we're all going to have to go in and learn about after this recording, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, this this is in a document on the Communication Disorders Assistant Association of Canada. They mentioned the difference between a CDA and then an OJT. So non-formally trained supportive personnel also have a variety of educational backgrounds. However, they are not graduates of the recognized CDA program. They will henceforth be referred to as on-the-job trained OJTs in this paper.
Based on that description, I would take that as almost like an assistant to the assistant. So I feel like they would help the CDAs. But it sounds like they're more of a support-based occupation rather than doing therapy and stuff. So they could probably help the CDA during therapy sessions. Well, that's what I understand from the description that you gave.
Kind of sounds to me like something like a student, a hopeful CDA or SLP.
Yeah, that's
He's doing some shadowing, doing some work, probably in bigger cities where there's more larger clinics and things like that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like for sure.
I also want to preface, if anybody's listening, we could be totally wrong. None of us know what an OJT is, so don't take our word for it at all.
No, this is interesting. So this, this is where I was a little confused, because as I was saying, Amy, I'm not familiar with CDA, but now I am. And then when I started to read earlier about the OJTs, I thought, well, what's the difference? But I think you're right. They may be supportive personnel to the CDA as well. Like it's on the job training.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of that before. Not even in my program. I've never heard of these people. But I feel like they would also be very beneficial because busy. The whole thing is so busy. Katelyn, when you become an SLP, hopefully one day, if I'm not an SLP, I could be your CDA.
Amazing. Yeah. No, we're always learning. We just learned a new term. We're going to have to explore that one some more now.
I think so too.
All right. So before we clue up, I'm wondering if you have anything you want to add or share, anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to share.
One of the questions that you asked me, like before we started the interview, was we talked about, I believe, the importance, or what my thoughts were, increasing the amounts of counseling and mental health treatment and speech language pathology, specifically for those who stutter. So I'm actually currently doing a fluency and voice course. So something that is important is the mental health aspect, because I realized that there were secondary characteristics and there was some self-esteem issues that do arise from stuttering and stuff, but I didn't actually realize how much can occur. So especially depression and social anxiety makes sense. But depression and people no longer just want to speak, they're just really important. So I feel like that speech difficulties can make a huge emotional impact, especially on mental health and emotionally and physically, and it could take a huge toll on somebody. So when we work with people, it's not just for their communication purposes, it's also for their mental health. So I think that the therapy itself is important when we do add the counseling aspect, because end up learning so much stuff. For example, like bullying experiences, how low their self-esteem can be, and their overall mental health wellness could be deteriorating due to speech disfluencies or communication disorders. So it's really important that we do add the mental health case, because like I feel like that's something that should be brought up more into the CDA program. The CDA program probably should be a little bit longer than a year, because you don't realize it until you do get into the field itself and you actually start practicing.
Okay, my last question, Amy, is that can CDAs specialize? Let's say specialize in stuttering. You know.
Um, I feel like that is like, I feel like they're like an SLP, so dependent on the clinic, because there are CDAs in my class that work at an AAC clinic, so Argumentative Alternative Communication. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Yeah, okay, so that term before, because I didn't until I started as a CDA. So they, the SLPs and the CDAs, they're focused specifically on different types of AAC. I feel like if I were interested in voice and disfluency, I could work with an SLP that focuses directly on them if I had the opportunity to work in that area. So for me, one of my interests is working with uh, Down syndrome patients. I love Down syndrome patients. They're so cute. They're so joyful. They bring so much happiness to your day. But I also really enjoy working with stroke patients as well. Well, I love working in every area. So I don't think I really have a favorite. They're all like, everybody brings so much different things to the table. You learn so much stuff from everybody. It's awesome. But I kind of went on a tangent there. But yeah, I think that is a possibility to focus on. I guess it depends on the clinic that you work in, right? And where your area lies, or where your interest lies, I should say.
Would it be too, like, if you're specializing as a CDA, you specialize in, say, speech pathology or audiology or something, like, is that
So
too?
so actually, it's funny that you say it, because my friend Jaclyn, when she was doing her placement, she worked with an SLP 2 days a week, and then she worked with an audiologist 2 days a week. So I guess she got to determine what she liked most. So she had that. She was lucky to have that opportunity. Unlike me, who was here in rural Newfoundland, not being able. I got one SLP. That's all I got. So you could, if, because we do audiology courses, actually. Like, I'm in the middle of doing an audiology course right now, which I do really find interesting. I love audiology. So later down the road, if I didn't want to work with an SLP, I could focus in working with an audiologist. But one of my biggest areas of interest is AVT, so auditory verbal therapy. Is the best of both worlds. I like to say it's audiology and speech. So that's my end goal completely. So whether I work as a CDA or an actual AVT, it's a really enjoying, like, it's a good area. Like, you get the best of both worlds. So that would be probably where I would focus most.
You know, being a novice, Amy, in this whole area, would you explain to our listeners what ABT means?
Okay, so an AVT is an auditory verbal therapist. So they work as a speech language pathologist and an audiologist. So their most common client is individuals who have cochlear implants. So cochlear implants are ears embedded into the side of your head. The easiest way to explain it. And they have magnets on them that help you hear. So the technology, there's an incision behind your ears for your cochlear, or your cochlea, and then like your middle ear and stuff. And they insert it so you could get the vibrations and the sounds and stuff, the frequencies. So they help not only with focusing on the hearing aspect of the cochlear implants, but they also work with the language development. So children with hearing loss are behind in their language development because hearing is such an important aspect of communication, um, especially speech. So they help them with their therapy sessions, and helping them uh, develop their language as they develop their hearing.
You know, it's amazing what what I learned from our guest on some stutter law, because I mean the whole whole area of communication, language, and speech is such a huge area that I feel that that in many ways that we've only touched the tip of the iceberg, and sometimes I sense that there's like the speech language audiologists, the CDAs should be working more closely together to support each other. Like that's my sense. What's your thoughts?
Um, we do work like I know Tony and the audiologist, so we don't have one here in Puerto Basque. They come in from Stephenville, and they do work closely together as it is. So we don't work just with audiologists. Like we also work with a bunch of different disciplinary. So developmental psych, there's behavioral management, there's ABA therapy, there's OTs, physiotherapists, uh, AVTs, daycare workers. It's a huge community of um, disciplinaries that work together for this one individual, which is really nice to see. Like you really learn a lot um, from each person. So they're almost like a sandboard where you could bounce your ideas off each other. Because it's important, like for physio and OT, if they have a sensory needs and they have different types of behaviors, we need to know what the sensory needs are and what we can do to help further our what's the word I'm looking for? Services. Further our services for them. Um, so it's almost like one big um, community, really, that helps each client.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot here. I've talked about it a lot, the importance of collaborative work between all different professions. So SLP and CDA is one obvious example. Obviously they work together, but working with audiologists, OTs, PTs, all of that, and then also working with psychologists and counselors. There's so much need for collaborative work, even working with an SLP working with, I don't know, a general physician or somebody. Like there's all kinds of different ways that these fields can interconnect, and I think that there's such a value on collaborative work that I think needs to be focused on a little bit more.
Yeah, teamwork is the main, in my personal opinion, teamwork is what makes the therapy productive. Like it makes it work. If we all work together, it helps form the perfect form of rehab for them, right? So it is really important. It's a really important aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, one last question. Okay. So Amy, what do what can the other associations do in terms of advocating, supporting the CDAs, because because the sense that it isn't a recognized position at the moment, and it's obvious listening to you that there's a definite need. What would you recommend to get more support from the other associations?
Um, if Well, I think the most important thing would be getting the word out about CDAs here in Newfoundland. So Nobody knows what a communicative disorders assistant is unless you unless you do the program. Besides some SLPs do know. So one of mine and Katelyn's friends actually just applied for a CDA program through the school that I went to. So it would be really important to get the word out in general how important CDAs are. I think then if we have enough of enough interest with the CDAs alone, like if we had enough people, I think that we could get recognition from I believe it's SAC, like this speech and communication or audio, the Canadian Association. And I think that we could get it here in Newfoundland if we do. I think it got to be a teamwork approach, I think, because they're not going to do it for just one CDA. You're going to have to show them the need and you're going to have to get the interest there on the island to get the CDAs, right? So
definitely needs some more education and awareness about what a CDA is, because not gonna lie, I've been planning to do speech language pathology since I was 13, have been learning about it since I was 13, and had never heard of a CDA until you started the program. So I have spent years and years and years learning about SLP and not once heard about CDA. So that is just crazy to me that happened, that I didn't know about it. So I definitely think that that's a super big thing.
I think the word definitely needs to be get out, because we're not just focusing on SLP. It's not just speech. We could work in any disciplinary. So we could work in audiology, like I said, or ABT or any other form. I mean, it's a broad area that you can work in, but we don't have the opportunity to show it here in Newfoundland. So I do think the education is so important. Like I think on SAC, there's one little area of CDA on the webpage, and I didn't know what CDAC was. I didn't know what the Communicative Disorders Association was before I started my program. I was just like, yeah, I'll be a student rep. Like, sure, no problem. And then I got to actually learn about it, and you don't know. And by fluke, I mean, I found out about a CDA program. So, I mean, it does need to be like spoke about more here on the island for sure.
Mm. You know, Amy, I sense that that you will be the advocacy voice of CDA in Newfoundland and Labrador.
I hope so. I hope so, because if I don't get into speech, I hope I could come home at some point and work as in my field of study, in my field of practice for sure.
Listen, Amy, if anybody can do it, it's you. You are a very loud and persuasive voice in the best way possible.
I'm pretty determined. Yeah, I don't because I could easily get my own way. I think eventually, if I work hard enough, I think I could do it. So.
Well, Amy, it has been a pleasure talking to you this morning, and I wish you the best luck in your new job. But remember to remember this is your home here, and we need people like you to lobby in this whole area of speech language and communication. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. I truly appreciate it. I loved having the opportunity to talk about not only my career, but also what I love to do. So it's really nice to be able to get the information about CDAs, and hopefully this could spark a interest and get us started here on the island.
Some Stutter La, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering, has so much to talk about. Let's start listening.
This has been an episode of Some Stutter La, Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about stuttering. Some Stutter La is hosted and produced by Greg O'Grady, Caitlin Mayo, Emily Murphy, Melanie Crane, Dr. Paul DeDecker, and Luca Dewey. Some Stutter La is available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. You can also check out the Some Stutter La channel on YouTube to ask a question, send us a comment or suggestion, or just to get in touch. Find us online at Some Stutter Podcast on Instagram or Some Stutter La Pod on Facebook. Thanks for listening.